welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking all about my unpopular opinions as an IBCLC. So the things that I deal with in terms of ways that I approach breastfeeding support, maybe in a less than popular way, or ways that I feel like, because I'm constantly learning as a professional, I am one step ahead of the game in terms of where the evidence lies and in terms of the care that I then go on to provide. So if you are a care provider of any sort, do stay tuned and let me know what sort of unpopular approaches or opinions you have, ways that you do things differently from the rest of you. You may have seen some of these already if you're following me over on Instagram. I'll leave my little Instagram handle somewhere here if you want to see more of my day-to-day life with the kids, if you want to see a little bit more about how I parent, some of my client caseload and some testimonials and things like that. That's the place that you will get it, as well as every Friday I do a Q&A. So I open up my question box and you can ask literally everything and anything. So that's always a bit of fun. So if you haven't followed me already, go follow me over there. And if this is the first video that you've seen on my YouTube, do make sure and hit that little subscribe button and the bell so that you don't miss my future videos. I'm going to have to excuse the weird lighting situation. I'm actually in front of a window today and clouds just keep coming and going. So apologies if it goes in and out a little bit. But let's start with number one. And this is the quite possibly the most, I guess, common thing that we come up against. And it's something that I almost find myself bringing up in every single consultation. And that is that even though I'm a lactation consultant, you, as my client, don't have to always strive for the perfect latch. Yes, you will see me looking for ways that we can get that perfect latch every time. You know, I love to see the chin snuggled into the breast, the nice round cheeks, the nostrils free, the mouth open nice and wide. But actually, my goal as a lactation consultant and the way that I approach my care is to have mum and baby first, to have that dyad being at the center of my care. And so that means mum is comfy, baby is moving milk well and gaining weight well as a result, and that it's maintainable, so that it's something, the way that your baby's latching, the way that you're feeding your baby is something that you can continue to do even when I leave the room, even weeks after I've been at your house or been with you in consultation room. And the goal with that is that it's something that is you feel like you can be efficient at without extra hands. So sometimes that means that a latch does not look perfect, but is it maintainable? Yes. Is mum comfy with no nipple damage or trauma? Yes. And is baby moving milk well? Then we are winning. So yeah, I suppose my first unpopular opinion would be that you don't always have to strive for that perfect. My next pet peeve is coming from some of the feedback that I get from mums who have spoken to mostly their public health nurses or maybe other breastfeeding mamas, and that is that their breastfeeding baby is lazy because they keep falling asleep at the breast. And I want to just completely kick this one out of the park and say that your baby is not lazy. Our babies are clever. Our babies are innately built to move milk when the milk is coming, to take a pause and a break when the flow slows down. Our babies are flow responsive. So when our babies are falling asleep at the breast, what we want to do is use that understanding to the best of our ability to support our baby in moving more milk. So in layman's terms, this means when we get between 2 and 3 letdowns, that milk ejection reflex, that milk spray per breast per feed, we want to keep that milk moving. So we want our baby we want to be listening out for our baby. So they've latched on nice and deeply, they've started to get the milk moving, they're going suck, suck, pause where they're swallowing, suck, suck, swallow. And then they might take a little break there. And in this scenario, what we're doing is we're going to encourage that milk flow, encourage the force of that milk flow forward by getting our hands involved. So making a sort of C-like shape between our index finger and our thumb, coming back to wherever our baby isn't attached to the breast. So we're not going to be interfering with their latch, and compressing down the breast like this. And what you're doing is you're forcing the flow of milk forward. And with this scenario, we can think about how we're giving our baby a top up at the breast or a little boost, and by encouraging the flow of milk, we're reminding them, and our baby goes, oh, I forgot there was milk here, great, and they will start to actively suck and swallow. do check out a whole entire video that I have around breast compressions, but also boosting your baby's intake in like free, cheap and easy ways, in this sort of rule of 3 that I have coined. I'll leave the link for that video in the description box. But as a general rule, your baby is clever, your baby is not lazy, and there are ways that you can overcome a baby who's falling asleep at the breast. Okay, this one I got an awful lot of hate for, and this is, I believe that all babies, breastfed or formula fed babies, should be pooping every single day. And the reason for this is when we look at gut motility, gut health, our microbiome, and the amount of milk that our baby is getting, it tells us a great lot about how they're doing in their overall health, whether our baby is thriving or whether they need that extra little bit of support. And when you were to look at your own gut health, you would feel a bit miserable if your bowels weren't to be moving every day. If you were going every 2 or 3 days, I'd be going, okay, let's look at your diet here. Let's look at your fiber intake. Let's look at your microbiome. Are you moving your body enough? And so when a family come to me and they say their baby's not pooping every day, I go, okay, let's look at this in a bit more detail. Is your baby getting enough milk? Generally is the first thing, because milk is, not, we don't have every bit of milk guzzled up. There are also indigestible aspects to milk and processes where there's always going to be waste products as a result of breast milk. And the way that we process our food, if we think about our food, it's not always just the fiber, the indigestible fiber that's coming out the other side. There's also all sorts of detoxification and processes that are happening in our body where we're excreting waste. We've got 3 forms of waste excretion: sweat, pee and poo. And so the poo is so important, and as a lactation consultant, it tells us a lot about how our babies are doing, how their gut is doing, and how much milk they're actually taking in. So if your little one firstly is not pooping enough, we are looking at several different things. I actually might make a whole different video on how you can encourage your little one to poo a bit more, because I see it so frequently, and it would be lovely to be able to give you some more hands-on, tangible techniques and ways to get to the root cause of why your little one isn't pooping as frequently as we would like. Maybe let me know in the comment section down below if that's something that you have struggled with, and if that's maybe something that you've been given mixed advice on, and if you'd like a whole separate video on it. I know I get a lot of public health nurses reaching out to me saying, oh my gosh, I completely thought that, or your health visitor reaching out and saying, I absolutely thought it was totally okay for breastfed babies to go consecutive days without pooping, if not even a week for some. And I'm here to say that that is not something that I abide by, and it's something that rings alarm bells for me. So we want our baby to be pooping once, if not twice every day. And, after that, then reaching out for some. Okay, so the next unpopular opinion that I have as a lactation consultant is that while tongue tie exists, tongue tie release is not a cure-all. It does not fix all of your troubles just like that. I love to come back to the analogy of you training for a marathon, but you've got your shoelaces of both shoes tied together. And then you get to the starting line of the marathon and someone unties your shoelaces and ties them the normal way. And all of a sudden you've got this extra stride and movement that you don't know what to do with, because that's not the way you've been trained. And so it's the same with our babies who have previously been tongue-tied or tethered, and that tethering is released. We need to retrain those babies to learn to suck effectively, efficiently, with coordination, and we need to work on their muscle tone and the tension that they would be holding, because when we imagine what exactly is going on anatomically with a tongue-tied baby is that tongue is tethered underneath the mouth and it carries on that tension the whole way through their body. So you want to work on releasing that tension and helping to rewire our baby's function to optimize that for them to have really efficient milk removal. So a tongue tie release is absolutely not a cure. Okay, so the next unpopular opinion and the way that I approach my client care is I'm not a fan of swaddling. I'm not a fan of swaddling, and I'm also not a fan of those newborn mittens. And the reason for that is that our baby's hands, their hands are like their GPS system to help them find the breast, to help them tell you when they are hungry, with their feeding cues, putting their hands to their mouth, to help them to latch on nice and deeply. They'll use their hands to kind of crawl for the breast. They'll pound at the breast to get another letdown. So important. And so when we cover up our baby's hands, or when we swaddle them up like this, what happens is we're telling our baby a really clear message that says, you're cozy up here, you're safe, you don't need to work for your food, you're still in utero, and you're so snuggled up there that your placenta the cord is still feeding you everything you need. And that is so far from the truth. And what happens is our babies will, because of that, sleep longer stretches, which sounds wonderful. But actually, the biggest question we want to be asking is your baby waking well? Are they waking well between feeds? Are they looking for the breast at least every 2.5 to 3 hours, if not more frequently? And we're sort of looking at like 1.5 to 2 hours in those early days and weeks. So in the early days, I say, hold your baby, snuggle them close, use that time to spend time skin to skin with your baby and getting nursing off to the best start. We want to be utilising our baby's energy that they have to suckle at the breast to transition our kind of sticky, runny, honey-like colostrum into our more mature milk and to really lay down the foundation for an abundant milk supply. So, not a fan of swaddling in the early days, and while there are places for it, absolutely always making sure that breastfeeding is good. Okay, last but not least, we're going to be looking at the fact that as a lactation consultant, I am not a huge fan of infant probiotics. So when we're talking about infant probiotics, we're talking about those single-strained probiotics that you will generally see on like the supermarket shelves or in the health food shop. And the reason for that is because as tiny newborns, their tummies are so sensitive. In fact, the cells and the gaps between the in between the gut lining are not fully closed yet. And so by introducing live bacteria when we don't necessarily know what it is exactly that we are supporting or adding, can be more detrimental to how our baby is doing. It's something that I always do with extra caution under the guidance of somebody who really knows your baby, their history, how they've been doing, and also to make sure that you're not giving a probiotic. The single strain probiotic is often what's recommended, that is going to further disrupt your baby's microbiome. Looking instead at how you can optimize their breastfeeding, how you can make sure that they're breastfeeding well, successfully, efficiently, and getting enough milk at the breast in a way that means they're not taking in any excess air. So working with a lactation consultant from that perspective. And if your baby is still fussy, you're making sure you're out ruling a fast letdown that they're not managing well. You're ruling out things like an oversupply, looking at how your baby is managing with reflux-like symptoms and seeing whether your lactation consultant can support you in that regard, and taking it from there. Infant probiotics are something that we want to be taking with great care. Our microbiome is a hugely complex thing that we still are learning so much about, but adding in a live bacteria to a very immature gut, for me, is certainly not the answer. I do have a whole Instagram post with a little bit more detail on why exactly I don't like using infant probiotics, so I'll see, can I link that down below. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. Again, apologies for the weird lighting. It's such a gorgeous sunny day here, but that always causes a little bit of trouble when it comes to filming videos. Thank you so much for joining me over here. Let me know if you've heard any of these weird, unpopular opinions or what your takes on them are down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for joining me.